Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. I am Tommy, I'm a human nutrition student and researcher at the university. My job here is to synthesize what I learn at the university during the classes, so then I can explain and teach you with my diagrams all the important information you need to know. Today we're going to continue the public health series of videos, and in particular the health and disease video that I already started. Today we're going to focus on some of the chronic diseases. So let's begin. Okay, so chronic diseases. Chronic diseases are reactions of the body itself as a result of a bad lifestyle. What does that mean? That means if we have exposure, overexposure from mainly one of these, we probably are going to have a chronic disease, unfortunately. So smoking, alcohol abuse, physical inactivity and bad eating habits. There are of course all the factors, but these are the most important and most common ones. So chronic diseases, we find cardiovascular diseases, cancer, mental health, diabetes, respiratory diseases and also musculoskeletal diseases. I put these arrows here because cardiovascular diseases are the most common ones, followed by cancer. Causality. This is not a correlation, remember from previous videos. Causality, multiple exposures. Exposures of what? These. Latency, extended by decades, because you have to get a lot of exposure. The clinical case is also extended. And the data is event driven. That means that it depends case by case. And there is not a certain treatment to these diseases. So let's begin with the first one, cardiovascular diseases. Cardiovascular diseases have high incidence and mortality. High morbidity, high mortality. The main ones are ischemic heart disease, cerebrovascular disease and arterial hypertension. Inside the ischemic heart disease we find the acute myocardial infarction, and this is the most common one, and also the angina pectoris. This is, for example, when people in the movies are dying and they feel a lot of pain in the chest and they are like, oh, this is angina pectoris. Cerebrovascular disease, we have the thrombotic stroke and the embolic stroke. So thrombotic means that it comes from an area near to the brain, whereas embolic comes from an area that is not near. So we have three common causes for these diseases. The first one is the chronic low intensity inflammation. I talked about this in other videos. The second one is the arteriothrombosis. And the third one is the arterial hypertension. As you see, you can see that this is here and here as well, because it can be a cause, a factor and a disease as well. It is uncertain. Risk factors. Risk factors can be causal, predisposing or conditionals. If you remember from previous videos, we talked about these types of risk factors. And the ones with most evidence are the causal risk factors. These are exactly what are correlated to having cardiovascular diseases. Predisposing is those ones that can enhance your probability of getting those cardiovascular diseases, and conditionals are those ones that lack evidence, but they may or may not increase the probability of getting those diseases. Most important risk factors are tobacco, which increases LDL, decreases HDL. These are lipoproteins that they contain cholesterol. And tobacco increases cardiovascular diseases by 3 times. Hypertension in people that have more than 140/90 millimeters of mercurium. Cholesterol, an increase in 10% have been correlated with more than 30% of increase in cardiovascular diseases. Obesity will increase the other ones, and diabetes will increase the glycemia, which is not something we want. In women we have estrogens, and estrogens are really good as a protection from cardiovascular diseases, but there is a a problem, because when women go through the menopause, they lower their estrogen levels, and the cardiovascular diseases can be fatal for them. And that's why women have the most amount of deaths in cardiovascular diseases. I mean, more women die from cardiovascular diseases than men do. Prevention and control. Well, the diet, the exercise and the smoking habit. These three alone, if we control these three, they will lower most cardiovascular diseases. And then we have the cardiovascular risk tables. These are tables that have been done using the Framingham study, and they will tell us if we are in risk of contracting cardiovascular diseases or not. Moving on, we have overweight and obesity. To start, we say that overweight is when you have a BMI over 25 and you are obese when you have a BMI over 30. This is body mass index. Spain is the fourth in Europe for obesity, and in 2020, 16.5% of males were obese and 44.9% were overweight. 15.5% of women were obese and 30.6% were overweight. In 7-year-old children, 18% of 7-year-old children in Spain are obese and 42% are overweight. 17% of girls of 7 years old are obese and 41% are overweight. And this data brings Spain to the second place together with Italy and Greece. I want to make a little parenthesis here because I think it's interesting to see that Italy, Greece and Spain, they are all from the Mediterranean. So is this having something in common with the diet? I don't know, I will leave it there. Obesity as a cause and as a consequence of illness. Yes, because obesity is a disease. It has been now officially considered as a disease, but it's not only a consequence, it is also a cause. As we saw previously here, obesity increases the risk factors of contracting other diseases. Then we have diabetes mellitus. This is when the glycemia is very, very high, either because we have no insulin, we have an insulin resistance, or maybe both. This leads to these symptoms: peeing, thirst, hunger, fatigue. We lose weight, we have blurred vision, infections, and wounds. Types of diabetes. We have type 1, which is autoimmune, and we produce no insulin. Type 2, which is insulin resistance, and it is correlated with obesity. Digestional is like a type 2, but for pregnant women. The LADA, which is the latent autoimmune diabetes for adults, so this is autoimmune as well, but it is for adults. This type 1 is mainly in children. And then the MODY, which is a genetic mutation, and it stands for maturity onset diabetes of the young. Epidemiology of diabetes. 1 in 6 women, pregnant women, have gestational diabetes, and it results in big children because they are provided with a lot of sugar, I guess. And it is estimated that by 2045, Europe will increase like 13% the diabetes overall, and Africa will increase it by 134%. By the way, in America, it's going to increase by 24%, more or less. One thing that stands out: people don't die of diabetes. People die because of the thing they get when they have diabetes. That's important to remember. So in Europe, we have these numbers. 1 in 11 have it. 1 in 3 don't know it. And there is a country, which is Poland, in which the 60% of people that have diabetes don't know it. That's incredible. Spain is the second country in Europe, and 1 in 7 have it. Here's a sad thing, which is type 2 diabetes is rising in children. And I guess this is correlated with what we were talking about here in the obesity. And then we have diabetes complications. 2 types. Acute complications are like hyperglycemia or hypoglycemia. When you have hyperglycemia, you have to inject yourself insulin, and when you have hyperglycemia, you have to get some glucose from the food. And then the chronic complications, 3 types: microvascular, which means problems in capillaries, because the problem here is too much glucose in the blood. So in a microvascular level, in capillaries, we have retinopathy, which will lead to blindness, the capillaries in the eye, nephropathy, which is in the kidneys, and neuropathy in the neurons. And then on a macrovascular level, we will possibly have an ischemic heart disease, a heart failure, cerebrovascular disease, peripheral arterial disease, and then a mixed one, which is the diabetic foot, the ulcers of diabetics, and in some cases erectile dysfunction. So that's it for this video. I hope you understood everything we viewed today. We talked about chronic diseases, in particular today with cardiovascular diseases, obesity and overweight, and the diabetes mellitus. In the next video I will talk about the rest of chronic diseases, but for today is enough. If you have any doubts, there is a comment section down below. You can find this diagram and download it for free on my website, clicking the first link in the description down below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video to your friends and family to spread this knowledge to them as well. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one. Ciao!